Greetings everyone, and welcome to Meditations and Transformations number 4. These videos are meant primarily as preparation for those who will be attending our Transformations of Natural Foresight Retreat in September of 2024. However, they are useful for anyone who is wanting to dive deeper into foresight and futures thinking. And so I welcome you into the futures consciousness that is inside all of us and belongs to all of us. I want to start off this video as I start off all the other short videos in the Meditations and Transformations series, and that is by reading you a few brief definitions of transformations. What do we mean by transformations? Well, number one, transformation is the evolutionary pathway of all living things. If things do not transform, they're dead. Number two, transformational futuring is the expansion of consciousness through anticipatory imagination. We covered that in detail in our last Meditations and Transformations video. Across and beyond time, space, and experience. Very important. We're going to cover that in today's meditations. That reveals emerging novelty and transformational realities. And last but not least, transformational development is the application of transformational mindsets and pathways among communities and ecosystems that results in environments of empathy, care, love, and wholeness. So as I said, we want to talk briefly this time about the three environments of the future: time, space, and experience. That last one you might not be as familiar with. And so imagine this looking sort of like three concentric circles. In the middle circle, the smallest circle, we have time. And that is where most of our futuring and foresight efforts lie. Oh, this trend is going to really become more prominent in the next 3 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We're going to write a series of scenarios that are set 7 years out from now. Of course, we're going to use them to react to our strategy today, but it's still looking at foresight and futures through a linear and mechanistic arrow of time. The future is a time that has yet to occur. Now, even when we use that kind of perspective for strategy today or to change our actions today, it has a profound effect upon the way that we interact with our environments, the way that we interact with transformation, transformational futuring, and transformational development for our communities and larger ecosystems. It is linear, it is mechanistic, and I've written a paper on this before called The Future Thinker's Dilemma, where I said that foresight has a time problem because that's not really where we want to look for our most effective futuring. So imagine that that's that inner circle. The next circle out, there's going to be 3 concentric circles. The next circle out is what we would call space or place. So you can see where this is going, temporal and then spatial, right? So next we have spatial. And that's a little bit better because when we start to think of foresight and the future, futuring and the future as a space or a place that is inhabited with trees and rivers, oceans and planets, crossing our fingers, and cars maybe, or some forms of transportation, and food systems, and cities and the way those cities might be formed. We inhabit those futures, or we fill those futures with things that we might expect to happen or not happen. And so that way, we're setting our vision, our view of those alternative futures, not on time, but on space and place. The future is a place, not just a time. Now, that helps a little bit because it allows us to think about how the future is inhabited, but it's also dangerous because inside of our dominant narratives, it is very hard for us to inhabit those visions of the future with things that are not, I repeat, are not within our dominant narratives already, within the systems that are already creating those futures. So how do we transcend time and space in our futuring? Maybe that's the first time you've ever heard this before. But yes, we should actually, in our foresight futuring efforts, be looking to transcend time and space, the barriers that lock us down to this dominant narratives that creep into our futuring and foresight work, no matter how hard we try. So maybe you think, Frank, that's all we can do. It's the best we can do. And we do the best that we can because we are a part of these systems. But foresight and futures consciousness helps us to realize that there is another way of thinking about time. There is another way of thinking about space. And that is the fact that, well, as the poet Maria Rilke said to a young poet and writer that he was advising, that he wrote down as one of his poems, and this is just paraphrasing, he said something like this: "The future enters into us in order to transform itself within us before it is given back out to the world or manifests itself in the world. The future enters into us in order to transform itself within us, not 10 years from now as a time, not as a place out there somewhere or a space, but rather right inside here." And this is what we mean by unlocking your inner futurist. It is a biological, psychological, and sacred dynamic, this future is. As a matter of fact, I want to read something to you, well, a couple of things actually. One from the founder of H3 Uni, Anthony Hodgson. I have it right here with me because I often use this quote in my Holoptic Foresight Dynamic presentations. And if you are coming to the Transformations of Natural Foresight retreat in September of 24, you're going to hear all about Holoptic Foresight Dynamics because it's really the core around which we do many other things. And every one of the retreats will be very different. But the core aspect of the retreat is that HFD philosophy, Holoptic Foresight Dynamics. Don't know what that is? You can look up TFSX on Medium and you can read all about HFD. But by the way, starting in our next Meditations and Transformations, I'm going to take a couple of those in a row, 2 or 3, to actually explain HFD. So that's what we'll be doing next time. But listen to this quote by Anthony Hodgson, the founder of H3 Uni. He said, "The insights we seek need to be so different from our current ones that perhaps they are, in some sense, located in the future. Our insights need to be so different from our current ones. Different, not time-bound, not space-bound, not plausible or probable, but rather provocative, transformative, challenging the systems that we are in." The more you future, and the more you think about foresight and futures thinking, the more it will challenge you, and it challenges the visions that we're having. It just won't let go of you. It's not something that causes us to meet the problems inside of the problems that we already have. It takes us outside of the boundaries of time and space. It transcends the temporal spatial limitations by being an experience that's in us and that transforms itself inside of us. It's an experience. He goes on to say, to detect those insights in the future, we need to cultivate a capability for futures consciousness. We are not used to exercising and develop this capacity at a larger scale for seeing what has to be done to achieve a new state of affairs. Future consciousness in its basic form is a capacity to perceive the future in the present, but not to perceive it as a time or a space or a place, but rather as an experience. We hear today experiential futures as if that's just about design thinking or design fiction or design futures. But all futuring is experiential when we break forth a way out of what we transcend the temporal and spatial boundaries of plausible and probable futures. And we really understand what futures consciousness is, connecting us to ancestral futures, to generational futures, transcending those barriers, and plugging us back into what wants to emerge so that we can co-create transformational realities, connecting us back to the cosmos again. Right now at Perspectiva, which is Jonathan Rowson's company, and they do a lot of talks by people like Nora Bateson and Bonita Roy. Bonita happens to be right now one of the speakers in a month-long thing that they're doing, series that they're doing called Temporics. Last week, I believe they talked a little bit about eruptability, what erupts, not erupts, but erupts, I-R-R-U-P-T-S, erupts, breaks forth or bursts forth into our knowing, rather than just being incrementally unfolding. The future breaks forth. And this week, I believe that Bonita spoke about something slightly different. But next week, October 23rd, I believe that's a Monday, at least if you're here on the East Coast of the United States. And so you'll be able to know what time that is. It's early in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. Ivo Mensch is going to be wrapping up this series by talking about futurability. Listen to what Ivo has to say. His session is going to be about. I can't wait to hear the whole thing. Ivo Mensch invites us into an exploration of how we may harness time's power and get a feel for the potential in different temporal modes available to us when we engage the future. What is available to us when we engage the future more deeply? Different temporal modes. The pursuit of goals, how we go about realizing desired futures. In this session, Ivo is going to engage in practices of temporal inquiry, exploring different modes of time. Are we really condemned to live through a linear structure of past, present, future, past, present, future? Or are there alternatives available to us? Prepare to confront and loosen your imaginal constraints that you have about time. Well, I've already set you up for it. Because if you think about this 3 concentric circles, we need to move beyond the barriers of the future as a time, the future as a space or a place, and we need to inhabit this future as an experience. The future enters into us in order to transform itself in us. We are helping one another to unlock this future individually as healthy individuation and individuated selves, but also, and even more importantly, as a cooperative evolutionary trait, collective, cooperative, collaborative. We will be able to unlock the biological, psychological, and sacred dynamic of futuring as an experience that dwells within you. I'll see you next time on the next Meditations and Transformations.